Welcome to the Writer Reads the Strays of Lunar One. This is Book 2, The Unwanted, Chapter 15, Rohim. Oliver waited for several long breaths before he glanced at the captain. Is he gone? She nodded. Yes, Alpha. The comms line is clear. Odyssey's timing was perfect. A startled exclamation rose from the communications team and the screen went live. Odyssey's agent lifted her eyes from the console in front of her and gave them a predatory smile. Good evening, gentlemen. I am Agent Catriona Delight, and I'll be part of the Odyssey pursuit team bringing you in. Oliver raised an eyebrow and turned slowly to stare at the captain. I thought you said. Delight chuckled. Don't blame the captain, she told him. We waited until Star Shadow's heir had finished his conversation before tapping the sys. You hacked my ship! The captain was outraged, and Delight gave her a stern look. You. She glanced slightly to one side, and Oliver heard keys rattle. Seconds later, Delight continued. Captain Ferron. The captain nodded, and Delight gave her another smile, this one just as unpleasant as the first. You're in danger of being charged with transporting known fugitives, so you can let us conduct our business quietly, or I can refer you to the relevant Federation authorities and have your license revoked and your ship embargoed. The captain's jaw dropped. We. Delight continued to smile. I see we understand each other. She shifted her attention to Oliver. According to my files, you are one Oliver Landstrom. Her gaze moved to Lewis. And you are one Lewis Havisham. Oliver noticed she didn't ask if she was correct, and he didn't bother replying. They both knew she had much more to say. No questions? She asked, and didn't wait for an answer. Good, because this is how it will go. You hope, Oliver thought, but kept it to himself. He stiffened as the agent's voice echoed through his implant. I know. She was gone as fast as she'd arrived, leaving him to check his implant's security as her on-screen self smiled serenely and went on to explain. Firstly, Odyssey approves the agreement you have with Lupari Clan Star Shadow, but, she added, raising one finger against the hope dawning on his face, we believe you are too dangerous and in too much danger to be allowed to roam freely. As such, she agreed, overriding Oliver as he drew a sharp breath to protest. As such, Odyssey will also have hunt teams in the field. You, gentlemen, will need to find the Star Shadow's she before we catch up with you, or we will remove you from the field regardless of your stage of completion. She regarded them with a very stern blue stare. Am I understood? Oliver met her gaze and saw no compromise on her face. That's, Lewis began, stopping when Oliver raised a hand for silence. We understand, Agent, so let me make this clear. We will not give up our commission easily, and cannot guarantee your people's safety if they come against us. His voice hardened. We will fight to finish what we have started, and casualties are guaranteed. The agent gave him a sharp nod. Understood, Mr. Landstrom. Let us hope it won't come to that. She stood back from the console and flashed him a dazzling smile. Let the hunt begin, she stated, her fingers descending to end the call. For the second time that day, Oliver found himself staring at a blank screen. This time, when he looked to the captain, she had an answer ready for him. They're gone. He breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Lewis. His second just shook his head. We are in it but deep, bro. Oliver opened his mouth to acknowledge that, but the captain cleared her throat. And while I hate to complicate your lives any further, I must insist you leave my ship, she told them. Oliver stared at her and then glanced at the scan team. Now? He asked, and she shook her head. Not right away, no, but we're a half day out of Rorickson's belt, and we'll be leaving you there, she told him, and he bowed his head. Understood. He looked at Lewis and sighed again as he looked back. How much do we owe you? The captain named a figure that would see them almost dry, and Oliver shook his head. Any chance we can offer something to reduce it? She glanced at her comms team. What can you do to improve my call security? She asked. I don't like unexpected interruptions. We can do that and see about taking out anything they added to your systems, Lewis offered. The captain nodded. You do that and show my crew what you're looking at, and we'll call this little trip even. Done, Oliver agreed, even though he knew what they were offering was more than their stay should cost. Both Odyssey and the Star Shadows shared the same set of morals, Oliver concluded, as the ship docked, and the same level of technology. Both parties had tried sending coding into the damsel's systems, and both had, to some extent, succeeded. Lewis went through what he could, tracing and identifying a scant half-dozen programs before he isolated what he could and started removing them. He wasn't done by the time the ship had finished its maneuvers, but neither his nor the damsel's schedules would allow any more time. Lewis handed the ship's security officer and the captain a list. Are we square? Oliver asked when they'd read through the items, and the pair exchanged a glance. This is more than we expected, the captain told him, and we'll pay you the difference. Oliver shook his head. We put your ship and crew in danger, and knowingly so. Call it an apology. You seem to do that a lot, she noted, and he shrugged. We're going through a phase. She snorted. That's one thing to call it. The captain handed them their packs. Courtesy of your farming friends, she told them. They said to tell you they weren't thieves. But they are something, Oliver noted, and she dipped her chin in a single assenting motion before changing the subject. I'll see you to the docks. When they reached the airlock, she stopped them again. I have a favour to ask, she said, handing Oliver a package. Can you deliver this to Rohim? You'll find him in the shadier part of town. Oliver took the package. How shady? He asked. Shady enough to not go running to the station authorities the second they lay eyes on you, she replied, and shady enough they might be able to help you find your way. Will you need a reply? Oliver asked, and she shook her head. We undock as soon as we've unloaded. She walked them through the umbilical and extended her hand. Good luck, gentlemen. Oliver accepted her hand, followed by Lewis. Neither of them looked back as they left the docking bay. Lewis waited until they were well onto the concourse proper, and he'd had time to scan for the station's surveillance cameras. Once he was sure they'd reached a blind spot, he stopped. Oliver stopped short beside him. What you got? Places to be, Lewis replied, not sure if there were any mix in pickup range. He didn't know if the station actually had hidden mix, but it was an asteroid station, and even though its docks looked busy, looked like it was located a fair way out. It made him wonder how many warp points the system had. The more the merrier, he muttered, earning a sharp glance from his alpha. Warp points, he explained, requesting access to the station's Wi-Fi and then putting up the publicly available maps. Tucking the card into his top pocket and buttoning it firmly in, he went through every layer once, moving back and forth between them like he was a tourist or a merc looking for an equipment store. Either way, he hoped it was enough to hide his true interest. The captain hadn't been kidding when she said Rohim lived in the shadier part of town. It was hard to miss, with its pawn shops, blended entertainment suites, and drinking establishments. The large enforcement station was understandable, but it was a surprise, too. Just how many do they expect to have to hold at any one time? He asked, and Oliver linked in, whistling softly when he saw the facility's size. Are we sure they're not slavers? He asked, and Lewis shrugged. It's too late to go back. We could see what's in dock. That's next. Let's get this parcel delivered. The way he said it made Lewis want to ask him how many mix he'd picked up and where. He was also tempted to go and look, but he'd already noted the security measures in place on the asteroid's net and didn't want to risk it. The sooner we're out of here, the better, he thought. Out loud, he said, Clients this way. Oliver didn't object. The man might be alpha, but he was alpha enough to let his pack lead in the terrain they knew best, and Lewis did know his way through the technical stuff. Thanks to Oliver, he was also starting to know his way around the operative stuff, too. For instance, he knew they'd drawn some attention, but nothing serious. The men and women in quasi-military uniforms had noted their arrival, and the way they'd stopped. Lewis watched as they consulted their tablets, frowning, glancing from the small handhelds to the pair of them, before nodding and tucking their tablets away. Looks like we're not the only ones who know how to monitor the system, Lewis thought. You see them? Oliver's voice sounded soft through the implant. I see them, Lewis replied. He followed Oliver along the concourse, relieved when his Alpha stopped at an information booth not far from the elevators. "We're looking for Ashgar's Hall," the Alpha said. "Got a delivery to make." "Well, you're on the right track, but I'd strongly advise you don't spend too long down there. It's not the safest part of town." "It's not?" Oliver pretended surprise. The clerk shrugged. "Every station has a district where things get rowdy," she told him. "Float Pocket is ours." "Float Pocket? You know, where your money just seems to float away? Plenty of spacers go there to let their hair down, and some of them relax a little more than is good for them." "Drugs?" Oliver pretended to worry, and the clerk hurriedly shook her head. "More like they drink too much and pass out where the less scrupulous can take advantage of open pockets." "Is the crime bad here?" "No," the clerk demurred, "but not all of our visitors have everyone's best interests at heart." "Smooth," Lewis noted, in the privacy of their implants. "Blame it on the visitors." Oliver nodded, giving the clerk a warm smile. "Thank you," he assured her. "We won't take any more time down there than we need to." "I can recommend several good bunk spaces," she offered. "I just bet you could," Lewis thought sourly, but Oliver smiled at her again. "Thank you. I may just take you up on that." As if oblivious to the double meaning, he gestured toward the elevators. "In the meantime—" "Don't let me keep you," she advised, waving them on. "Did they follow?" Oliver asked once the elevator was descending. "No, but they stopped and chatted to the clerk," Lewis told him. "You hacked the cams yet?" Lewis shook his head. "No, they got some pretty tight security going here, boss." Oliver grunted and was out the elevator doors as soon as they'd slid open. "It's not far." It wasn't, and Lewis was content to let his friend take the lead. He followed quietly, staying close enough Oliver would notice if he was gone. The store front they arrived at advertised "New for Old" and "Refurbishment for the Rare." The two men exchanged glances. "Refurbishment for the rare?" Lewis asked as they pushed open the door, stepping inside and carefully closing it behind them. "They fix things no longer made?" he hazarded, after a quick look at the neighboring shelves. "You got it in one." The voice that cut into their conversation came from the shop's rear. "Can I help you, gentlemen? I was just about to close up." Oliver hefted the package. "Got a delivery for Rohim." "That's me," the man replied as they rounded another set of shelves. He'd started moving out from around the counter at the back of the store and was holding out his hand when he caught sight of them. He paled as he took them in. Oliver and Lewis stopped, watching him in puzzlement as he reversed rapidly around the end. They cocked their heads as he positioned himself behind it and felt around under the counter top. "Aren't you going to ask him what he's doing?" Lewis whispered. He nudged Oliver forward, only to find the Alpha's back an unyielding wall. "Nope," Oliver replied, taking a step back. "I think I'm going to leave and wait until he tells me it's okay to come back in." He took another step back. Lewis gave him a quizzical look but moved with him. "May I ask why?" The sound of heavy bolts sliding into place made them both halt in their tracks. Oliver glanced over his shoulder and saw no one. Lewis snuffed the air. "I'm here on my own," the man assured them. "I mean you no harm." "Uh-huh. You have ID?" Oliver asked as Lewis peeled away from him to check the store. "In my own store?" The man was incredulous. "We're not to know that." The sound of footsteps reached them and Oliver had his blaster out and warming up as the store owner came into view. The man stopped. "In my own store?" "You locked the doors." "Well, yes. But if you do have a package for me, then I'd at least like to see it." "You seem awfully nervous for a man who owns the store," Oliver answered. "Yes, but then I live in Floaters." "Floaters?" "The other name for Float Pocket," the man wryly informed him. "You have ID?" Oliver asked, although why he asked Lewis didn't understand. IDs were easy enough to fake. The man slowly raised his hands, and then just as slowly reached into his top pocket, pulling out an ident card. Holding it up between two fingers, he waited. "It's here if you want to check it." Lewis glanced toward Oliver and at the Alpha's nod moved forward to take the card. "You going to unlock the doors?" Oliver asked, holding the blaster steady with one hand and taking the ident card with the other. After reading the name, he did a double take. Rorickson? The man gave a self-deprecating smile. As in the family that founded and owns the station, yes. Oliver handed Lewis the card, and Lewis didn't wait for Oliver to ask. He just ran the name through the station's database and came up with a match for both the name and the face. Even the identity numbers were correct. You'll have to forgive me, the man told them, but I didn't expect wolves. Oliver froze. I beg your pardon? The man paled further. He pointed at them. Wolves. You are wolves, aren't you? How would you know? I have sniffers, he explained. Nanite drones that gather data from the air around a potential client. Wolf pheromones are quite distinctive. You're both Lupari Ware crosses, and here he gestured at Lewis, is newly formed, not more than 12 months old. 6, Lewis informed him, ignoring Oliver's curled lip. The man held out his hand for the ID. I also know who you are, but if you do have a package for me from Adele Theron, then I'll hold off calling Odyssey. Lewis gave him back his ID, and the man turned his attention to Oliver. So, do you? Oliver stared at him, and Lewis knew he was deciding what to say next. Finally, he just shrugged. And if I do? The man held out his hand again. Then I'd like it, he stated, his voice firm and expression hard. And I won't take no for an answer.